I can say quite clearly, don't come over. That's the message from Joe Biden to immigrants coming from Central and South America. And does that sound pretty much the exact opposite of what he ran on while running for president? Well, it should, because it is. He said people should be rushing the border, and that if America turned away people from the southern border, it's inherently, intrinsically un American. But now, don't come over, guys, because he knows this is blowing up in his face and this is making him and his party look bad because they are bad. From Glenn Greenwald, is this on the Statue of Liberty? Why, Glenn, it's not. It's not on the Statue of Liberty. But it's just worse than this, and I'll explain it here in a second. But before we get started, how about you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below because it helps with the algorithm. From Lauren Boebert, Biden announced that President Harris is the border czar. Maybe she should stop laughing at the American people and go visit. And I don't believe that Kamala Harris was laughing strictly at the American people. I think she had a bout of Schadenfreude and was laughing at, basically, she's now in charge of caging more innocent people of color. As you recall, as she was attorney general in California, she denied parole for people of color so she could use them as slave labor to fight California wildfires. She also suppressed evidence to keep black men on death row because that would negatively affect her prosecution numbers. So why would she change her MO? Why would she change her SOP when it comes to keeping people of color in cages longer than they're supposed to be? Right now, the Biden administration has a problem of keeping kids in cages for 120 hours. That's the average. It's only supposed to be 72. But why would she change that policy? Her policy is to keep people of color in cages as long as possible so she can exploit them as labor. That's pretty much been the Democrat policy in the United States since 1619, if you buy into that narrative. So why would it change in 2021? Why would it change because of Kamala Harris? You would be a racist if you thought that Kamala Harris would want to change it. Take a moment and think about that. Jump over to Axios. Biden puts Harris in charge of border crisis. Just as President Obama tasked Biden with fixing the U.S. economy after he assumed office in 2009, Biden is putting his own vice president in charge of a problem threatening to overshadow the new administration's successful launch. Harris will lead efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle to manage the flow of unaccompanied children and migrant families arriving at the border in numbers not seen since the surge in 2019. Starting today, the Northern Triangle nations and Mexico will know there is one senior official dedicated to this effort. So Mr. Mayorkas was not the dedicated official for that effort. I'm just confused, guys. So we're having different messages being sent from your official statements, and it's confusing me. It was held just an hour before a White House event with Biden-Harris Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas and Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra. So, and Mr. Becerra should have been the leading point of what was happening at the border. So Mr. Mayorkas and Becerra both should have been the point man for what was happening at the border. Now it's VP Harris, but I think it's to take the heat off of Joe Biden because he doesn't want to be seen as just another white man caging just minority children at the border, because again, Democrats have been doing that since 1619, right? If you believe the BS that the New York Times is basically pushing and shoving down our throats, then he's just an other white segregationist just keeping people in cages. The announcement and high-level meeting coming the same day the White House arranged a trip for senior aides and members of Congress to South Texas illustrated the breadth of the administration's effort to get control of the problem. Republicans say Biden is to blame for refusing to reinstate a Trump-era policy to expel unaccompanied minors, as well as more accommodating language the president's own press secretary concedes is connected to the administration's humanitarian values. So it's important. If you're going to have a message of just, hey guys, you're not doing anything wrong and we understand what you're doing, as opposed to, hey, you're breaking the law and we will not tolerate you breaking the law, it's two separate. It's just they're gaslighting these immigrants. And what's worse is they're gaslighting them so hard that they're lying about where they're flying them to. They're sending them back to Mexico and they're lying. They're saying, welcome to Miami. And they drop them off in Juarez, Mexico. And that should be cause for an investigation because you're, it's not that you're doing the right thing, it's that you're lying because these people had made their way into the United States. And the United States, there is case law on this that once you're already inside the United States, you are given certain protections from the Constitution, even if you're not a US citizen. So the question's going to have to arise that if their constitutional rights, just having been in the United States, even though they're in the country illegally, were violated, if they were put on the plane being told that they were being sent someplace else within the United States, and then they were dropped off in Juarez, and then while getting off the plane, they're saying, welcome to Miami, and with the Will Smith song playing in the background. So is that violating their constitutional rights? Is that a violation of some sort of humanitarian whatever? I don't know, but we need to look into it as a country, as a society, because doing the right thing, saying, hey, we need you to get on this plane so we can send you back to Mexico, is the right thing to do. But saying, we need you to get on this plane and we're going to send you to Miami, and then they get dropped off in Mexico, and while being dropped off in Mexico, they're saying, welcome to Miami, that's different because that's evil. One is both can be seen as you're doing something bad, right? And you're both doing something within what your law requires you to do. But the difference between you doing a good thing versus an evil thing is by doing something good, you're telling the truth, the hard truth, saying, hey, you're not supposed to be here. We'll process your paperwork in Mexico. We're going to send you back to Juarez. But they're not doing that. They're being evil. They're claiming that they're sending them to Mexico or they're sending them to Miami while dropping them off in Mexico. It's horrible. Ted Cruz, Kamala, tomorrow 17 senators are joining me at the Texas border. The Biden administration is refusing to allow press to see the CBP facilities. Since you've promised to release children from cages, surely your administration will allow media to film the empty cages. If not, what are you hiding? Kamala Harris tweet from July 5th, 2019. As president, I will immediately put in place a meaningful process to review asylum cases. I will release children from cages. I will get rid of the private detention centers. It's time we had a president whose actions reflected the values of our country. However, I will get rid of the private detention centers. I believe Joe Biden has doubled and tripled down on those private detention centers. From Juanita Broderick, Biden appears to backtrack, says he'll reestablish what existed at border, the political insider. When asked by a reporter on Sunday about what can be done about the chaos at the southern border, President Joe Biden had a very interesting reply. A lot more. We're in the process of doing it now, including making sure that we reestablish what existed before, which was they can stay in place and make their case from their home country. Reestablishing Trump-era border policy would be a stunning reversal to Biden's first day in office, where some of his priorities were to roll back the former administration's migrant protection protocols, which kept immigrants attempting to cross the border illegally in camps in Mexico while awaiting hearings. The Biden administration opted to return to catch and release policy, in which illegal immigrants are allowed to enter the U.S. Guys, Joe Biden is a fascist in chief. He's the white supremacist in chief, if you believe what Cori Bush has to say. Doing this is an act of pure evil. Only dictatorial fascists would do something like this. Or perhaps Trump was onto something. Hey, we're a nation of laws, and you're technically not a nation unless you have defined borders. And once you cross that border, you are basically you're forced to follow the laws of whatever country you enter. That's why you see cases of there was a Marine a few years ago who accidentally, I don't understand how he accidentally crossed into Mexico, but he had guns in his truck and then he was basically thrown into a Mexican prison for illegal possession of firearms. So what Joe Biden was basically trying to do was as if that Marine in Mexico, if Mexico essentially said, we're just going to release you into Mexico. You can do whatever you want, even though you have guns, even though you broke our laws and you illegally crossed the border with weapons. We don't really care. We'll just talk to you in 6 to 9 months. But what Trump did was basically just enforce the laws. And that's all we're asking people to do because you're flooding these border cities and they can't handle it. You have the mayor from Del Rio essentially showing pictures of empty grocery shelves because they don't have the infrastructure to deal with these tens of thousands of illegal migrants being dumped into their cities. From Maria Sacchetti, I can't pronounce that. Mexico's president says Biden policies are spurring migration. Expectations were created that with the government of President Biden, there would be a better treatment of migrants. And this has caused Central American migrants and also from our country wanting to cross the border, thinking that it is easier to do so. Guys, you know you're messing up when the president from Mexico, like an extreme left wing politician, is calling out your policies, saying your policies are too radical for him. When Mexico is grandstanding on immigration policy, you know you're doing something wrong. It's bananas. From Axios, Scoop, 300 unaccompanied minors currently in U.S. government shelter system have tested positive for COVID-19. The numbers highlight the staggering challenges in trying to manage a child migration crisis during a pandemic while weighing human rights and child welfare concerns against immigration laws. Of the unaccompanied children currently in shelters, only about 3% are currently in isolation after testing positive when they arrived, according to the latest statistics provided to Axios. About 7.4% of tests given to unaccompanied minors in the past year turned out positive, according to HHS. But the positivity rate has been higher, about 10%, at the Carrizo Springs shelter in Texas, opened last month. So you have a 10% positivity rate, and yet these kids are sleeping on top of each other. And let's take a moment to realize that children have less positivity rates than adults. Kids are less susceptible of contracting COVID-19. So if kids are popping positive at a rate of 10%, what rate are adults popping hot at, essentially? What is the COVID-19 rate of adults crossing the border illegally? From The Intercept, do you know where you are? The name of the city. Central American families arrived in Mexico's Ciudad Juarez, disoriented and disconsolate. I don't know. Many didn't realize they were being expelled from the U.S. They said, Texas, one woman replied. I think I have the full story pulled up. I don't have it pulled up, but let's look at that real quick. Because it actually has a good transcript and they have some of the people talking about it. Actually, let me pause that. Sorry about that, guys. Let's see. What's it called here? A skinny man with a 4-year-old asked me. Ciudad Juarez. I said the state of Chihuahua, Mexico. Around us, toddlers wailed. Older children stared and mothers quietly wept. The skinny man summed things up. They'd each been deceived by the U.S. government, he said. His verb choice might have seemed strong, but it wasn't just migrants who were misled. So were Americans just north of the border. So even the Americans just north of the border are being lied about where these people are being sent to. They're being said that they're being sent into the U.S. interior, or they're being sent up north, or they're being sent to Miami. And they're being lied to. And I think there's more quotes as the farther down, because I read this the other day. Let's see. I asked the Border Patrol to confirm this, and El Paso Sector Chief Gloria Chavez responded by email. Our priority is to process them and expel them into Mexico under Title 42. The video is pretty long. I don't want to show it, but essentially you have people saying, what did immigration tell you? Here's the subtitles of the video playing right now. They told her nothing. Did they give you COVID tests? And her response is no. Asking people, do you know where you are? Do you know what country you are? No. Do you know the city you're in? No. What did they tell you on the flight? Nothing, because they have no pity. And this one's actually pretty good. They bring us without eating, without anything. What did they tell you? That they were going to help us communicate with our relatives, but nothing. They just took us from there to here. We were deceived. Did they say they were deporting you? What did they say before they put you on the flight? Did they explain where you all were going? No, they didn't want to explain. We asked them, but they didn't want to say. They did say they were taking us to be processed to go north, but it didn't happen. What did they say on the flight? Welcome to Miami when we arrived. And we could tell we weren't there, that we're on some border with Mexico. Who told you you'd have a chance to cross? Well, sometimes you hear on the news that crossing is allowed. So they basically talk as to why they crossed into the United States. But you can see these people were deceived. They're being told that they were going to be processed, their paperwork was going to be processed so they can go further into the United States. But they're being lied to. This is an act of evil being committed, being perpetrated by the Biden administration, by the Democrats, by the same Democrats who since 1619 have exploited the BIPOC community, have exploited minorities throughout the nation. And it's just getting worse by the day. Put them on a bus and dump them on the other side of the border. That is Kurt Schleicher's response to Jason Miller's "This is insane." San Diego Convention Center to house as many as 2,000 migrant children. And as you recall, a Dallas Convention Center is supposed to hold 3,000 migrant children. So they're expecting more and more migrant children. When's enough going to be enough? When is Joe Biden going to admit? And I wonder if there's going to be a reporter today during the press briefing that will have the stones to ask Joe Biden the question, was Donald Trump right? Were you wrong for repealing his, basically, you stay in your country and you fill out your asylum paperwork and then you can enter it? For reinstating catch and release, was that a mistake? I wonder if there's going to be a reporter with the stones to ask Joe Biden that question. From Jorge Ventura Media, thank you for supporting us, says a group of migrants when I asked if they had a message for President Biden. The group said they were from Honduras and were currently being apprehended by Border Patrol in La Jolla, Texas. Stay tuned for more updates on the ground. From John Daniel Davidson, migrant smugglers admit they're encouraging parents to send children unaccompanied because of Biden administration's policies. It's good to take advantage of the moment because children are able to pass quickly, said a Guatemalan smuggler. That's what we're telling everyone. Many children that the United States government classifies as unaccompanied actually traveled with other family members, cousins, uncles, or older siblings. Remember, I covered that a couple weeks ago. But some smugglers said their networks have also been organizing children-only trips in recent weeks. On his most recent trip, he transported a group of 17 children between the ages of 5 and 9 from southern Mexico across the border into Texas. Of those 17 children, the majority of their parents were already living in the U.S., and none of them were accompanied by other family members. Which underscores what some of us have been saying for a while now. In many cases, parents aren't sending their kids to the border. They're sending for their kids. The parents are already living in the U.S. In 2019, smugglers sped up the trips to the U.S. border by transporting UACs from Central America on express buses. But Roberto, a smuggler who said he is linked to a powerful cartel in Juarez, said his network is now flying minors directly from Central America to the U.S. border by plane. And I replied, coyotes can't fly planes, John. Because if you remember the joke from a while back, they said coyotes can't carry little kids across the border. They're not strong enough. I've never seen coyotes kidnap kids. Well, I've never seen a coyote fly a plane, to be honest. So that's going to be it for now, folks. What do you guys think of what's going on at the border? I think it's just a giant mess. And I think this is a game of hot potato, and Joe Biden doesn't want to end up losing this game. That's why he's appointed Kamala Harris the border czar. If this is going to blow up, Kamala Harris has proven to be Teflon when it comes to political scandals, when it comes to unjustly suppressing evidence to exonerate black men from death row. She's Teflon. None of that sticks. So I think Joe Biden realizes that it's probably better optics for her to cage kids than for him. And what do you guys think about that? So don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to leave a comment because we got a lot of stuff going on in the conversations. Will help. See y'all in a bit. Have a good one. Bye.